Friend or foe, Eliot Spitzer's presence definitely loomed very large on Wall Street.
So how is it going to affect markets if he steps down? Our Fox panel is back now to talk about it. Victoria, let me go to you first. This is a guy who's had a lot of notches on his belt. As I mentioned before, none of the cases that he brought, none of the decisions that were made were on the basis of a jury trial. A lot of it was his nudging these people in the direction that he wanted them to go. Is there anybody out there capable of doing the same thing?
Well, there probably will be going forward. Right now, I think Wall Street is getting punished by the market, not anyone in the Attorney General's office. And that's probably a more painful form of punishment because Spitzer went after high-profile cases, but to my knowledge, didn't really inject any kind of reform across the board. I mean, even you talk about investment banks and analysts having more of a wall between them. I don't know if that's really true. I think there's an inherent conflict of interest in the banking industry that will always be there.
Maybe so, Terry, but I know analysts and I know investment bankers, they're staying away from each other to this day.
Yeah, and the job of an analyst is no longer considered as important or lucrative because you're not swinging the investment banking business as much.
Exactly.
So, you know, I do think he had an impact. I think he will be missed because despite all of his other faults, he was very smart. And he was behind trying to work out this mess with the insurers and the bond insurance that we've been talking about at the state level. I do, however, think that Andrew Cuomo will be quite happy to fill his shoes.
Who has aspirations to be governor. In fact, AG is often called aspiring governor. But Gary Kaltbaum, what about one thing I think that we'd all agree needs correction? The rating services. This is something that not only Andrew Cuomo but also Governor Spitzer were very interested in, particularly because of the subprime mess. We had these mortgage-backed securities that clearly didn't deserve AAA, that were given AAA by S&P, Moody's, Fitch, etc. He wanted to take aim. Is there anybody else that's going to pick up that cudgel now?
I sure hope so. Look, to this day, the rating services have AAA ratings on an AMBAC and an MBI that have to go out and pay 15% on their debt and almost was unmarginable. So there is no doubt those are false AAA ratings. Unfortunately, I've been saying this on my radio show for months, the people who should be overseeing this are doing nothing. So it's kind of a shame that somebody like Spitzer is now out of the way. I'm hoping somebody else picks up the slack. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I try to yell and scream about it to my 8 people listening on my radio show. I'm not so sure they're listening.
Peter Schiff, what do you think of that? I mean, do you think that there's a chance that we will continue to see reform? What kind of reform should it really be on Wall Street?
Well, I think that there needs to be a lot of reform, but it's not just the rating agencies that put these ratings on there. I mean, people believed them. I mean, when I first looked at these AAA-rated subprime securities, when I first learned about them, I couldn't believe it. I said, how can anybody buy this? These things should be rated F. I didn't even have to look at it to know that they were going to default. I mean, so everybody's looking the other way because everybody's managing everybody else's money, and they're all getting a piece of the action, and no one's got skin in the game and you know, real money.
You were a big supporter of Eliot Spitzer.
Well, I mean, I think some of the things he did were good, but I said I don't think he went far enough. I think we need more reform. I'm a big critic. You know, look, I'm highly regulated by the NASD and the SEC, and I think, look, these government entities that supposedly regulate the securities industry, I don't think they're doing the public any good. I think what they're doing is protecting the monopolies, near monopolies of major Wall Street firms, making it a lot harder for small firms like me who have to deal with all this bureaucracy, that don't have, you know, big legal departments and big compliance departments. You know, it's harder for us. Meanwhile, I think the public has a false sense of security that they're being protected, but they're really not. I'd like to have more competition, less government regulation in the securities industry, and have regulation by the free market. People looking for a good track record, looking for the competition for reputation. I'd rather put my faith in the market than the government.
Who would want to take on what Eliot Spitzer did and be reviled in all of Manhattan? You know, instead you can go after dry cleaners.
He got to be governor of New York.
See, yeah, he had a huge following because, I mean, he got a lot of people voting for him.
It helped to get him elected,
to get elected, certainly. And I mean, I remember, I said this yesterday, I saw him in a restaurant when he was Attorney General. People were hitting him on the back saying, great job, keep going, Eliot, keep going. And Gary, I think that there was some real goodwill, at least at that time, for people who had made investments based on what analysts had said was good quality when it really wasn't.
Look, all investors ever ask for is a level playing field. And throughout the last few years, and you're seeing a lot of it now, there isn't a level playing field. Some of these big financial companies are just too big, and they have to be saved because they're too big, and that's not the way markets should work. I say let them go. And I want to mention something that happened today that I noticed. The head of the SEC came out to literally defend Bear Stearns when there was rumors of a liquidity problem. Why is the head of the SEC coming out to defend the company? Let the company does that. I just think that there's too many people, closed hands, all part of the problem, and they need to break away and let's split this whole thing up and get back to a level playing field where
Victoria,
investors have a good chance.
the irony is that's exactly what Eliot Spitzer would have said he was trying to do. Not only Eliot Spitzer, but also Andrew Cuomo as Attorney General. But it was the way in which Liz mentioned how popular he was when he came in here as governor. He came in with over 70% of the vote. I mean, it was very extraordinary. But immediately after he came in, he got embroiled in this scandal of using state troopers to try to go after his political enemies in the Republican Party. The guy couldn't stop himself.
Right, right. He was a prosecutor in the past and going forward and always will be. But it was a great path to power for him, and that means that someone else will fill his shoes.
All right. We've got the Dow up 354 points. Citi and American Express up more than 7% each.
We'll take it. More going to come.